Okay, guys, it's 7 o'clock, so I think let's go ahead and start. For once, we want to actually start something on time. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Badr Alam, your General Secretary for ISGH. Just want to thank all of you guys for joining. We know it's been a very rough month of February, 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, that we were dealing with the winter freeze and all the issues we had to deal with losing power and losing water. A lot of people were displaced. So a lot of things happened, and alhamdulillah, ISGH was there at that time. We were delivering water. We had our masjids open, giving around the city. So we served close to like 2,000, actually more than 2,000 ready hot food meals across the city. So we did that, but now. Okay, so I think someone muted me a while ago, but so now we're in the phase of more recovery, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. And it really hits home because one of our board members, one of our ISGH board members, actually the treasurer, he had busted pipes, and he's really dealing with the adjuster, the insurance. And we know there's a lot of people that are renting that are dealing with landlords. So we're hoping that this program is going to really answer some of those questions that you guys are dealing with. And this isn't just a Muslim problem. It was a city problem. It's a state of Texas problem. There's people dealing with it in Dallas and stuff. So we just hope this is beneficial for the community. So I really want to thank the Muslim Bar Association of Houston for stepping up in very short notice. Literally, we had our vice president contact them, and Omar was our contact, and literally this was arranged within like 2 days. So I really applaud the Muslim Bar Association of Houston for stepping up and getting this done to really help the community. So first attorney that's going to speak is going to be Salman. I'm going to be quiet because really we're here to help the community with answering some of the questions that you might have. So Salman, go ahead. I'm going to mute myself and go ahead and start take over.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and good evening. Just to kind of give you a synopsis of what I'm going to be talking about today, I'm going to be going through some of the common questions that people seem to be having concerning landlord-tenant issues with the delay in repairs, also the rights and remedies available to tenants and that sort of thing. First and foremost, I just want to mention that if you are dealing with any of these issues, whether your power has been off, you need repairs in your dwelling, or busted pipes, whatever it may be, a lot of times people have been notifying their landlords by giving a call to the office manager, or if it's a single family dwelling where you just have one landlord, just giving them a call. What I want to reiterate to everybody, because I'm still hearing today, I'm getting calls here and there, people telling me that, well, I notified my landlord, or I didn't really notify my landlord, I figured he would call me. Well, make sure, in addition to calling, or if you're using a portal, you also send a certified mail and just drop it in the mail notifying your landlord of whatever has happened. My recommendation personally is to send an email as well as something by certified mail. That way, that starts the timetable for the landlord to respond. And it also provides you with sort of support in the event your landlord does nothing. Some of the other things after that is make sure you are current on your rent. Do not think that because your landlord has not responded, that excuses your requirement to continue to pay rent. You still have a requirement to continue to pay rent. And in fact, the landlord's obligations don't start, the landlord's obligations to repair do not start unless you have paid rent, both during that coverage period and afterwards. And I'll get into later what things you can do if you don't have the money, or for those of you who are probably or maybe also suffering from the effects of COVID. You may have lost your job and you're really relying on the eviction moratorium and haven't paid rent. This is kind of it's a unique situation on the Texas Property Code, because the Texas Property Code does require you to be current on your rent before the landlord's obligations to repair are there. So what I still recommend is, if you are behind in your rent, still do make that written notice to your landlord, letting them know that the repairs are needed. And again, send it again by email and by certified mail. The other question I seem to have is the landlord responsible for making repairs? And in most instances, yes, the landlord is responsible for making repairs to the dwelling unit. However, like with most things, do review your lease, because there are some situations where a tenant, especially when you're dealing with a landlord of a single family unit or a condo, where the landlord it's his only rental property. A lot of times in those situations, the tenant may decide to take on some responsibility, or the landlord may tell the tenant, hey, it's your responsibility to make these repairs, and either bill me for it or you're responsible for the repairs, and I'm deducting it I'm including it in the reduced rent. In all other situations, that's not possible. So if you're living in an apartment complex, the landlord can't require you to make those repairs under the lease. So just keep that in mind. One of the other questions I seem to be having is, how much time does the landlord have to make the repairs? Well, it depends on what damage has been caused. So under most circumstances, a landlord has a reasonable amount of time to make repairs after it's been requested. When that happens, what is a reasonable amount of time? Traditionally, it's been held that 7 days is a reasonable amount of time. One thing I will say is, because of the gravitude of how things have kind of carried out all over Texas, the limited amount of resources and the limited amount of materials, things are taking a bit longer. And it's questionable how the courts would treat the 7-day requirement or 7 days, as whether or not that's still reasonable. It could be that in many of these situations, 14 days is reasonable. Now, that doesn't mean that if there's a pipe burst, the landlord doesn't have to take action immediately to try to stop the damage. But that does mean that sometimes with some of these repairs, if you have sheetrock repairs, if you have other repairs that are needed, the landlord can take a little bit longer due to these emergency situations. In addition to that, one of the biggest things that everybody needs to understand is, if the damage that is caused is leaving the entire rental unit unlivable, and it's basically a casualty. What that means is, if basically an insurance is going to cover the repairs, the landlord's obligations to make the repairs don't get started until the landlord receives the check. However, that does leave you with a couple of remedies. One of that is possibly terminating the lease. And that's not only by the tenant, but also by the landlord. If the unit is uninhabitable and the landlord is really counting on that insurance check to come in, and you can't live there, you have the ability to terminate the lease. Just keep in mind, so does the landlord. Occasionally, I've been getting calls from people saying, well, what if I threaten my landlord that I want to terminate the lease? Well, if you want to make that offer to your landlord, just understand that he may agree to release you. And if he does that, The second question that always follows up is, was he responsible for to find me a new place? Is he responsible for my moving costs? Is he responsible for the damages? Traditionally, no. Unless there's something specific in the lease that says the landlord is responsible for your moving expenses in this event, the landlord's not responsible. And majority of the time, no lease states that the landlord is responsible for your moving expenses or for terminating the lease early due to casualty or to repair needs or anything of that nature. What else? The other question I have is, as far as moving costs goes, no, the landlord is not responsible for moving costs. However, there is assistance available, and I will let Amir kind of discuss that a little bit more, but you can contact FEMA, and FEMA does have the ability to help you out if you have exhausted all your other avenues of assistance. So the first thing, of course, is your tenant insurance. Tenant insurance, if you do have it, can help pay for temporary housing and can also assist, and of course, all your personal belongings. So those are the things you need to look at. If you don't have that, then of course, contact FEMA. The other question is, what about the rent that I've paid? Do I get any of that back? Because I paid, a whole month's rent in advance, and I'm terminating the lease within 15 or 16 days. And will I get any of it back? Yes. If you terminate under one of the provisions that allow you to terminate, for example, the casualty where the unit is just uninhabitable, then your landlord's going to return your security deposit, of course, as long as there's not any additional damage caused by you. And of course, a prorated amount of rent. So if you paid 30 days, you're leaving after 15 days, he has an obligation to return 15 days worth of rent to you, so whatever the prorated amount is. What else? And then some of the other, I think I've already asked this, but the landlord is not responsible for any of your personal damage caused by burst pipes or loss of power, your food that goes bad. Landlord has no responsibility for that. You can look to your renter's insurance, and that's really the only avenue you have. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, Sal, I've done all of these things and my landlord is just not responding. What can I do? Well, if your landlord is still not responding and you're just not getting anywhere, you can get a court order telling your landlord that he has an obligation to make these repairs. Yes, that's going to take time. You can get a court order authorizing you to reduce your rent. Of course, that will take time as well. You're also entitled to some damages, up to 1 month's rent plus $500 in some instances. But all these remedies really depend on each individual case. Now, before that, can I make the repairs myself? If I really advise against making repairs unless you're allowed to in the lease again, unless it's a remedial measure to try to mitigate the damage, which at this point, and how many weeks it's been, I'm sure most of you have already crossed that board, that line. If the repairs are still ongoing, if there's sheetrock repair or other repairs, I do not recommend you make those repairs yourself and just deduct it. There is a provision in the Texas Property Code that allows you to do that, but there's certain things that have to be done. One, that notice that I mentioned at the very beginning, you must give that notice. You also have to follow up with a second notice if your landlord doesn't respond in 5 days, unless you have sent that notice by certified mail the first time. And that's why I'm really iterating that everybody, not only do you notify your landlord by email, but also send it by certified mail. That way, if in 5 days they don't respond, you can move forward with the next course of action to try to remedy that situation. The other thing that's required for landlords is they have to make a diligent effort. They can't just call you and tell you, hey, I'm trying, and that's basically it. They have to, actually have somebody out there, or try to have somebody out there in this instance. I know some people are telling me that they're finally having repair people come, they'll take a look at the unit, and then they don't hear from them for days. Ask questions, make sure you're documenting what's going on, make sure you take plenty of pictures of the damage, and do send out multiple emails to your landlord letting them know that, hey, somebody came out and no repairs were made. And then, of course, if your landlord still does not respond, then the next course of action is to either make the repairs yourself, which in some limited circumstances I do recommend, but under most circumstances, your next avenue would be to file a repair and remedy case in JP court. So I know I'm kind of running out of time, I believe, and that's all I really have right now. And I want to open it up to questions if there are any. Otherwise, I think we're going to hold off for the questions until later.
I do think that we have some questions that are specifically related to what you talked about, Salman. So maybe
Okay.
it's a good idea to go into it. So I see that Usman Masood asks, would you define inhabitable as it relates to habitability of rental premises?
So that's a question that's gonna, really, if it's, you cannot live there. You know, it's, if the unit is entirely flooded, if it goes to the health and welfare, if the unit is such that it affects your safety and your health, that makes it inhabitable. If it's to where there is a safety issue by you living there, then it's inhabitable. Otherwise, if you're talking about, in some instances, like my AC hasn't been working because there was a short circuit, they're working on electricity, but otherwise the unit is fine, that's not inhabitable. I hope that answers your question. If there's more, if you have a specific situation, I'm happy to respond to that if you need.
Is it okay if I ask the question directly?
Sure.
Okay, so like you mentioned, the AC is not working. In our case, there was a fire in the house, so the heater is not working. Gas is turned off. So do you think that's inhabitable or
Are you saying right now that your heater is not working?
Right now, yes.
If it's freezing cold or if it's very cold, then yes, in that instance, it's inhabitable. But and how long has it been? Is it a prolonged issue? It can't be something like, you know, a day.
16 days. 16 days. We had a fire in our house, so 16 days.
Okay. And what was the fire? What was the reasoning for the fire?
Gas leak.
A gas leak. Okay. And who specifically?
I'm a renter, and landlord is cooperating, like she's trying her best, and we did not send her a certified mail. We just text her. So I'm assuming text is also a legal document.
I really recommend you email and still at this point, even though it's been this long, do send her a certified mail. In your instance, is there a cause other than just a gas leak? Did you cause the gas leak?
No, we just turned on the fireplace and there was a gas leak.
And the gas leak caused the fire, which caused some damage, and now there's no gas.
Yes.
Okay. Without trying, I mean, I would need a lot more facts, and this is probably not the best place to do that. What I'll say is do send out the emails, send out the certified letter letting her know. The other thing to do is talk to your landlord. Like you said, the landlord is cooperating. If it comes to the point where you're wanting to terminate, the burden of proof is on you to show that it was uninhabitable. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If you're complaining about, we tried to turn on the fire 4 weeks ago, but right now in Houston, it's not freezing cold temperatures. There's other things that can be done. Then I'm not sure a judge would believe, or possibly a jury, that your home is uninhabitable. Does that answer your question?
And I'm also going to jump in here. Inshallah, Salman and I are going to try to answer questions sort of in a general sense, and hopefully situations that apply to a wide variety of people. For more specifically tailored answers to your legal questions in your specific situation, that is something that you would have to consult an attorney. This This is sort of meant as more of a general presentation to give you guys some information, but not specific legal advice tailored to your situation.
Okay, thank you.
And also to add to what Salman was saying, the law defines habitability super broadly, just so it can apply to a lot of different situations. There are some obvious situations where a property is uninhabitable, and then there's some gray area. And unfortunately, the gray area is where it makes things difficult.
Okay, the next question I saw was, my tenant has not asked for a hotel cost or compatible housing while the repairs are being made. Can landlord still ask for rent from the tenant? I think there's more that I would need to know. That's sort of a general question. The tenant still has an obligation to pay rent as long as it's still moving. If it's something which falls under a casualty, like I stated, it's probably best for the landlord and tenant to agree to something. I would approach your tenant. If the tenant is not paying and it's short term, let's say a few days is what you're talking about, then the tenant still has an obligation to continue to pay rent at that point. Let's see, I think we've already discussed, we did define uninhabitable. Can you repeat what you said about if the place is a casualty? The landlord can terminate the lease, but how long notice? If the repairs that are required fall under being a casualty, the landlord can terminate right then and there. He just has to allow you notice. He has to let you know that, hey, I'm terminating, within a reasonable amount of time, terminating the lease, and that's basically it. There's not a set amount of days. A reasonable amount of time would allow you to remove your things. But yes, the landlord can do that in the event of a casualty. Again, that's when the landlord is counting on insurance to provide the money to make the repairs.
So I also see a question: if we are not living in the apartment due to damage, et cetera, then does the rent get prorated for that period? In a general sense, when the place is damaged, what sort of happens?
So if you are not living in the apartment, if so the problem with that question is it because you're choosing not to live there, or is it so damaged that you can't live there? Again, the duty to continue to pay rent exists under the lease. Nothing relieves you of that duty to continue to pay rent unless the lease has been terminated. And unfortunately, that's it. So it's up to you at that point whether or not you want to terminate the lease or continue to pay your rent. Can landlord go after tenants' liability insurance for negligence to pay for damages? I'm not sure what that's regarding. Most tenants, I'm guessing you're referring to renter's insurance, which usually has some sort of coverage for loss of rent. But I'm not sure, so I'm not going to be able to answer that.
And for answers to more specific questions, I'm sure Salman would be happy to answer those in a more private setting, and he will be able to give his contact information at the end of this presentation.
Sure. And then last question. Actually, I'm not sure what that question is asking. I have a question about the time period it takes to inform the landlord. Unfortunately,
can I ask?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, just like here. So yeah, I'm in Dallas, and the landlord has been like, obviously, for whatever reason, they didn't do the repairs right away, and now there's mold because of the water damage, and I don't know if they didn't see it or they didn't like whatever, but I know in the lease it says I have to inform them immediately if there's mold. But they seem to believe that the dwelling is still inhabitable, not uninhabitable, whatever. So do I have to, like, I know I'm trying to get the letter out by certified mail, but like, since they say I have to do it right away, inform them of mold, will I be held liable for not saying it immediately, like there's mold?
No, I don't believe, just because the landlord says you have to let them know and that they're not, if they're, and I'm not sure if they're saying they're not going to take responsibility, but if they're saying the place is still habitable, but you are concerned about your safety and your welfare due to this mold, then I would recommend, one, you notify them that, hey, this mold issue exists. We believe we're in fear for our own safety and our health and our welfare. And if you need to move out, I think it's, but are you asking, are you wanting the landlord to take care of it? Is that, I'm still not getting at what.
I do want them to, but I just want to make sure that they're not going to be like, well, you didn't tell us right away that there was mold, and we couldn't do anything about it because your stuff was still there. When I was waiting for them to let me know if I had like, if I was going to be moved to a new unit, like I was waiting for them to also tell, you know what I'm saying? I don't want them to turn around and say like, well, you didn't tell us there was mold when there was mold. And I was like, but they were in the apartment themselves and they should have seen it. So I don't know. Like, we're not on the same page basically. And I just want to make sure, like,
unfortunately, I can't really answer that.
Okay, just like, no,
I will say, go ahead and document it. Do let them know what's going on. Do request the repairs. Be as clear as possible in your request.
Right.
As far as the landlord's obligation to find you another place to live.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. Well, I mean, even a unit in their own.
They have no obligation to find you alternative shelter while your repairs are being made.
Oh, okay.
And again, we're trying to give more generalized information and advice. We're not your attorneys, and we're not creating an attorney-client relationship with all of you today. So if that is something that, if you do want more specialized advice tailored to your specific situation, Salman will give his contact information at the end of this presentation, and feel free to contact him.
I think that's all the questions I see here that I can answer. If there is anything else, like Amr said, yes, I can provide you my contact information and we can set up something separate outside of here. But no worries. Sometimes it's tough to ask a general question when you've got something that you really just want to answer. So I completely understand. And even as an attorney, I feel like I want to answer it, even though I need additional information. So,
and that's not us fussing at you. We just also have sort of rights and responsibilities as lawyers that we have to go through when we're giving information out like this.
Okay, I don't see anything else, so I'm going to pass it over to Amr to take over and discuss about the insurance claims.
Great. Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Amir Siddiq. I am an attorney out of Houston, Texas. I understand that we actually have people outside of Houston joining us today, and we welcome you. Inshallah, this is something that you guys will also benefit from, because the winter freeze affected all of Texas. It wasn't just a Houston thing. It wasn't just a Dallas thing. Everyone was affected. And for the most part, the laws that are going to be applying to you will be the same throughout Texas. So whether you're in Dallas, whether you're in Houston, Fort Worth, wherever you are, hopefully this will be a benefit to you. So I've got just a short PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go through it. I'm going to be talking about insurance claims. And this presentation is going to be geared towards homeowners insurance and renters insurance, but there is a wide variety of insurance policies that this could apply to. But I'm really geared towards homeowners insurance policies that I'm sure many people have, which might be in play as a result of damages suffered during the winter freeze. So give me 1 second. I will get this going. Salman, are you able to confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. We're good to go. All right, so winter freeze and insurance claims. My goal here is not to feed you a body of law. We have an entire body of law in Texas governing insurance policies, insurance companies, and what the rights and responsibilities for insurance companies are, the Texas Insurance Code. My goal is not to teach you the Texas Insurance Code. For many of you who will be dealing with insurance companies as a result of damages that you face during the winter freeze, I want you to be armed with tools that will help you in navigating this process without messing anything up. Throughout all of this process, when calamity strikes, the person who's going to have your best interests in mind is you. And so a lot of people haven't necessarily gone through this process before. I think the last time in Texas we faced such a mass of these kinds of homeowners insurance policy claims was Ike back in 2008. And some of you might have dealt with it during Hurricane Harvey if you had flood insurance, but not everyone had flood insurance. So not everyone was making these types of claims during Hurricane Harvey. So my goal is to give you guys a set of tools that as you navigate this process, you can make sure that you're doing everything right up until the point where you might need to hire legal counsel. So let's talk about insurance companies for a little bit. We tend to buy insurance policies in the hopes that when things go wrong, they are there to pay our claims and to essentially save us from financial disaster. There's a lot of insurance companies out there. Sometimes you're going to have a good experience with them. Maybe you've dealt with making a claim on your insurance policy before and you've had a good experience. Sometimes you're not going to. Unfortunately, insurance is a business, and a lot of how this business makes money is by not paying claims and finding reason not to pay claims. With this specific instance of the freeze, like I was mentioning earlier, it was something that affected all of Texas. Insurance companies aren't staffed to be able to handle the kind of volume of claims that are going to be occurring over the next few weeks and the next few months. So you might be dealing with contract adjusters, people who have just graduated college who don't have any experience adjusting insurance claims. Just due to the volume, there might not necessarily be bad faith on the insurance company's part, but mistakes will get made. So you need to be doing everything in your power to make sure that you are protected. Sorry about that, I skipped a slide. So the first step is to read your insurance policy. If you don't have a copy of your insurance policy, then you can request one from your insurance company and they'll provide you with one. It's really important that you're familiar with this policy. And I understand that there's going to be a lot of legalese and language that you might not necessarily understand within that policy, but there are certain sections that I want to point you to that are likely in your policy that you need to be familiar with. So one of those is going to be a covered perils section. There's certain things that are going to be covered under your insurance policy, and there's certain things that are not going to be covered under your insurance policy. The covered perils section is going to go into what your insurance policy covers. Now, generally, I'm expecting that a lot of the people who suffered damage as a result of the freeze is going to be from pipes bursting. I'm sure there's other ways in which people were damaged, but I imagine the majority of them are going to be water damage related to burst pipes. Generally, in homeowners insurance policies, these are covered. Now, there are going to be exceptions to that, but you're not really going to know until you read your covered perils section of your insurance policy. There's also going to be an important section within your policy governing notice. So it'll govern how you have to inform your insurance company of the damage, the time limits in which you need to inform them, who you need to inform, what you need to say. All of that will be in the notice section, which is why it's really important that you read it and that you follow it, because like I was saying earlier, insurance companies are going to find ways to to not give you the money that you're owed if you're not following to a T the instructions that they're providing for you in your policy. Okay, I covered those 2 bullets. Contact your insurance company if you need a copy of your policy. Follow the instructions given in your policy. It's really important that you follow them to make sure that you aren't taken advantage of. So I imagine many of you have already done this, given that we're about 2 weeks out from the freeze. The policy language is going to have notice requirements, but you're going to want to inform them if you've suffered damage. And you're probably going to want to call them and ask them if they want to perform an inspection prior to you making any repairs. There are situations in which the insurance company is going to want to inspect exactly what the damage was and sort of have their adjuster come out and take record of everything that happened. And it might be that they aren't willing to, that you have a contractor coming and making a bid on the repair for whatever damage that you suffered, and the insurance company is not willing to pay as much as the contractor is bidding you and that sort of stuff. This allows them an opportunity to inspect prior to the damage being fixed. And this is probably also untimely, given that we're a couple of weeks out. You'll want to take steps to avoid further damage. If you've got a leaking pipe, obviously turn your water line off so it doesn't continue to flood your house. Do those little things to make sure that your damage isn't constantly increasing, because you do have a duty to mitigate your damage or to make sure that your damage doesn't increase. Now, this is going to be a common theme just when you're talking to lawyers in general. Salman touched on this as well. Document, document, document. Everything is about telling your story. And right now is a great time to be thinking about it because we're only a couple of weeks out. Another common theme within lawyers and dealing with legal remedy situations is that things take time. And the unfortunate thing about things taking time is that it could be a year, 2 years down the road when you're finally getting close to a resolution, and your memory about what happened in the details will not be as clear in 1 or 2 years as they are to you right now. And so you want to be taking pictures and video of your damages and thinking about not just this winter freeze, but future situations that we might go through. I mean, in Houston and also all around Texas, going through natural disasters is becoming an annual thing. So one thing that I do that you don't have to do, but I think it's a good practice, you hear about a natural disaster coming or a tropical storm or a hurricane or what have you, do a walkthrough of your house on video and go through each room, document what the rooms look like, what the condition of everything is, talk on the video as you're doing it. So you can develop a record of what your situation looks like before calamity strikes. It might be, I mean, we're past this winter storm, and honestly, I'm not sure we could have predicted that it would be as bad as it was, especially with everyone losing power. But now that, regardless of what situation you're in right now, you still have time to take pictures and take video. Alhamdulillah, a lot of people have camera phones. That makes it very easy to document these kinds of things. Also, good practice, write things down as they're happening. Develop a detailed record of everything that you lost, all of the personal items, all of the various, if your carpet was damaged, how much carpet was damaged, if your wood floors were damaged, how much of it was damaged. Being able to develop just a very complete list of what you lost. And the more detail that you have in that list, the better. If you're able to identify personal items to the make and model, even better. There's a difference between saying that you lost a toaster versus saying that you lost a Breville toaster oven that cost you $150. Being able to document with that degree of specificity and detail is really going to help you. As you communicate with as you communicate with the insurance company, take down the names and their positions of who you're speaking to develop an accurate record of all of your communications, of when they're happening, who you're talking to, what you're talking about. Any correspondence, any letters that the insurance company is sending you, you need to keep. I'm not going to tell you that you need a document retention policy, but hang on to this stuff. Any invoices that you're getting from repair contractors and any receipts involved, you need to keep. It's also good practice to have a couple of people bid whatever repairs that you might need to make, just so you can get an idea of what is a reasonable cost and save those bids. Now, this is also something that I want to alert you to. I think we've all had that experience where we're calling some corporation and we hear the automated message that these calls may be recorded for quality assurance. Now, in some cases, that's true. The calls are being recorded for quality assurance, but those calls are also being saved. And if there does end up being a dispute between you and your insurance company, if they're not paying you what you're owed, then those phone calls somewhere down the line might end up turning up again. So you want to be very careful about how you're representing your damages and what was damaged to the insurance company. I would avoid saying things like, oh, my damage wasn't that bad, or giving any sort of character to what was damaged. I would.
Amir, if you don't mind, I just wanted to add one thing. In addition,
go ahead.
Phone calls, one of the things that I've noticed is in today's world, everybody's using social media, and the videos you post about your damage, or not so much in the landlord-tenant space, but when you're on your own home and you're, I saw this one video of a guy taking pictures of all the damage as it was happening, and it was a 10-minute long video. And at no point did he do anything to try to stop the damage from getting worse, turning off the water. At one point he made his wife was like, shouldn't you turn off the water? And he says, no, we can't do anything until you guys got to be careful. There's no need to post that to video. And just like you said, just be very careful what you are posting about damage. Sometimes you may think it's a joke to say, well, maybe we can get this covered, and, you know, just avoid all that. And if at all possible, just avoid posting those videos to social media.
Yeah, I have dealt with a number of situations where social media posts have come back to bite either my clients or other people's clients. So yes, be very careful about what you post and how you're posting it. Anytime you talk to them on the phone, follow it up with an email communication, especially if you can get an email communication from the person that you're talking to. This helps keep a record of exactly what's happening and what you guys are talking about, especially since while they might be recording the phone conversations, you are not. You want a record of, hey, this is what we talked about. This is what you told me. It's also important to ask a lot of questions. Anything that you're curious about, understand why that thing is happening. If an insurance company decides to underpay your claim or to not pay your claim, make sure that they're explaining what provision within your insurance policy allows them to do that. Constantly be asking questions, and especially if you can get insurance companies to put things in writing and put those explanations in writing, it helps develop a record of exactly what's going on between you and the insurance company. But my last slide was on FEMA. Before I get into FEMA, as you're doing all of these things that we talked about, especially if you feel like your claim is being underpaid or your claim is not being paid at all, and you felt that's a good time to consult an attorney. There's an entire industry devoted to dealing with insurance companies as they relate to paying claims made against them. And an attorney would be able to take your specific situation and tell you whether or not you've got a claim and whether or not the insurance company was in the wrong and denied you payment when you should have gotten you should have gotten compensation for your damages under the policy. So that's a good time to start to consult an attorney, talk to them about your situation, see if anything can be done. So my final slide has to do with FEMA, just some general information. There is FEMA aid available for people who don't have insurance. Texas was declared a disaster zone as a result of the winter storm. Disasterassistance.gov is a government website that can give you specific information tailored to your zip code of what type of aid is available. Sometimes this aid can include giving you rental assistance of if you need a place to stay. Sometimes this can include property coverage for your personal property, items that you might have lost as a result of these instances. The specific type of tailored assistance that FEMA might have available is going to be dependent on your zip code. Please visit disasterassistance.gov to see what FEMA is offering, and it'll also allow you to fill out a FEMA application at that website as well, if you are someone who's been affected and who doesn't have any insurance policy that's otherwise covering you. So inshallah, that sort of concludes what I wanted to talk about. I hope that was helpful. At this time, we'll take some more questions. I have been on share screen, so I haven't been able to see if there have been any more questions that have to do with dealing with your insurance company. I think for specific instances, you're going to have to consult an attorney because there's a lot of different circumstances in which insurance companies can use the policy to avoid paying you. And so an attorney might have to do a deeper dive on your individual insurance policy to see who is in the right. We have a question from Jamal. I had a water leak that is now leading to mold formation. I didn't contact insurance since I thought the cost to repair would be less than my deductible. Is FEMA an option? Any advice? Generally, not relating to your specific situation. Whenever you have an insurance policy that would cover the damage, FEMA aid will not be available. You usually have to work your way through all of the alternate sources of recovery that you may or may not have before you're eligible for FEMA assistance. So if you do have a homeowner's insurance policy that is covering your damage, even if you decide not to use and make a claim against that homeowner's insurance policy, you would generally not be eligible for FEMA assistance.
So Amr, I got a direct question, and asking, can the brother explain if any FEMA or other government aid is available for homeowners with insurance who suffered damages and will be on the hook for their 1 or 2% deductible that is due with insurance claims? So he's specifically asking about the deductible.
Can you repeat that question again? I'm trying to see if there's a difference between that question and the question that I just answered. And so generally, if you have an insurance policy, you're not going to be eligible for FEMA.
I think he's right. I was asking about the deductible. My deductible is 2%, I think. Mm-hmm. And I think the repair cost will be quite a bit less than that. Mm-hmm. So I am on my own, right?
Right. So first thing you want to do is check your policy. You likely have a duty to provide the insurance company with notice, even if your deductible, even if it's going to be within your deductible. And you also don't want to be stuck in a situation where you realize that the repairs are going to cost a lot more than you originally anticipated, and you might have lapsed one of your deadlines under the insurance policy. So you want to look at the policy first to make sure that you're not making an assumption about what you need to be doing that ends up biting you later. Even by having that insurance policy, you're generally just not going to be eligible for FEMA aid. That's going to be usually reserved for people who don't have any other source of recovery. And you do have to certify when you're applying and when you're signing various FEMA forms that you don't have other sources, or you've gone through other sources of your recovery, which in this case, it sounds like you have.
Yeah, and then just to add on that, to answer your question, your deductible is not going to be covered by FEMA. FEMA is not going to cover your deductible so that you can use your insurance. That's going to be on you. Once you've exhausted all your remedies, then FEMA can come in. But again, if you have insurance, like Amr said, there's a good chance you may not qualify. The other thing is there are other assistance programs out there. There are loans that you can receive, but that's basically it. Those are the only options that I'm aware of.
Thank you very much.
And one more thing I just want to clarify on, because I noticed the same question that was in the chats. The obligation to pay rent continues. You don't prorate it unless the lease is terminated, and then upon the date you're completely out of there. From that point forward, the landlord has a duty to prorate and return that portion of the rent. But if you are not living there and you're choosing to keep that lease open without terminating it, then you have an obligation to continue to pay the rent.
So I see a question from Mudassir saying, I work at a company and equipment was damaged due to the freeze. Not sure if insurance covers this. Does FEMA help? So I don't know if FEMA specifically helps. I have dealt with other situations in relation to Hurricane Harvey where the government has referred individuals and businesses to getting SBA loans, so the Small Business Administration. I know that that might be something that might be available in this freeze situation. I'm not entirely sure about that, but that is something to look into. I'm not sure about FEMA specifically. Salman, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, there are business loans available through FEMA, through the SBA, and I think I'm not sure about FEMA, but through the SBA, yes.
So Usman Masood is asking, would you be able to provide the links for people who have insurance but still need financial help? So if you have insurance and you've exhausted your insurance policy, then you're going to want to look at FEMA and seeing if FEMA is able to provide any additional aid, in which case, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So for that, go to disasterassistance.gov. I see a question from Mudassir asking, if your insurance claim is denied, can FEMA still help? That's really a question that the answer is it depends. That's going to be a very sort of individualized inquiry. Lawyers love to use the words it depends, and unfortunately it's the correct answer a lot of the time. If that's a situation that you end up with, I would consult an attorney to see what your options are. Or we'll give another couple of minutes for any additional questions, and then inshallah we will wrap up. All right, I'm not seeing any other, wait, I am seeing one. If lease is terminated because the dwelling is a casualty, is the hotel stay covered? Someone, so you're my resident landlord tenant person. Just generally talk about maybe circumstances in which hotel stays might get covered as a result of damages relating to rental properties.
I'm not sure if you're referring to the insurance coverage or if you're referring to the landlord's responsibility. If you're referring to the landlord's responsibility, a landlord does not have any responsibility unless specifically stated within the lease to provide you with coverage for shelter, be it a hotel or another apartment or another dwelling unit for you to occupy while the repairs are being made. No obligation on the part of the landlord. That's something you'll look into your renter's insurance for, or you can look to FEMA for some help. You're exactly right.
Okay, so we have a request for attorney contact information. Salman, why don't you go ahead and give your contact information if anybody wants to send you a more individualized inquiry, or if anybody needs any sort of other assistance, they might be able to contact you and get sort of that personalized attention. Salman, you're still on mute.
I will post it in the chat so everybody has it.
So there are also people watching via Facebook Live. So why don't you go ahead and state it as well?
Okay, my office here is here in Stafford, in Fort Bend County. My phone number is 281-201-2682. Again, that's 281-201-2682. That's the best way to reach me. And you can give that number a call and we'll be happy to try to help you as best we can.
And my contact information, again, my name is Amir Siddiq. I work at the law firm Walston Bolin over in the Galleria as a part of Harris County. You can reach me at amir@walstonbolin.com. That's AAMIR, M as in Michael, at Walston Bolin, WALSTONBOWLIN.com, or 713-300-8700. All right, folks, I think that sort of concludes our presentation. I want to especially thank ISGH for setting this event together and organizing it and advertising it and sort of doing all of the legwork to make this happen. I'd also like to thank the Muslim Bar Association of Houston for having me and Salman here today to speak with all of you. And inshallah, we were able to provide some helpful information that will allow you guys to better navigate your situations and your individualized circumstances. Just briefly about the Muslim Bar Association of Houston. The Muslim Bar Association of Houston, or the MBAH, is an organization of attorneys in the greater Houston area. It allows for us to network with each other, and we try to also provide helpful information to the Muslim community and general community at large. You can find us on our Facebook page, Muslim Bar Association of Houston. And if you need to contact us for any reason, you can message us through that page. Salman, you have any closing remarks?
No, thank you guys for having me. It was a pleasure. I hope everybody is doing well compared to 2 weeks ago. And I know some of you guys are still working through things, and stay strong. And if there is anything we can do to help, please let us know.
No, thank you guys on behalf of ISGH, on behalf of the community, for really making this a successful program. It seems like a lot of questions were answered, and hopefully the ones that weren't answered, your information is out there so they can give you a call. But I'd like to, as you mentioned, Amr, thank the Muslim Bar Association of Houston. Hopefully we can do something like this again, hopefully in better circumstances, not wishing anything else. But we know the community is suffering, the Houston community, the state of Texas, and hopefully this helped a little bit answer your questions so you guys can move forward in your insurance claims or landlord disputes. So thanks again. Thank you for all joining, and have a good evening. Thank you.